Hey, greetings to everyone watching. Here is Nick and myself, Anthony, breaking down UFC 320 this weekend for Dine Sports. UFC 320 comes to Las Vegas, will be headlined by a rematch between Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight championship. This card also features the men's bantamweight title fight with Merab Dvalishvili looking to defend his title once again. Should be a really good event here this weekend. Nick, how would you rate this fight card before we dive in and start breaking these matchups down?
Yeah, I mean, it's up there. It's a good one. I mean, we've had some really solid regional fight nights lately. Haven't had to spend too much time in the Apex, which is always a good thing. There is a lot of name value here. It's a good card. I think there's a few fights that you can afford to miss if you want to, but overall, really solid offering from the UFC here.
Yeah, it should be a good one. We got 14 fights here to break down. So let's get started talking about this rematch for the light heavyweight championship. Magomed Ankalaev minus 250. The betting favorite here, looking to defend his belt against Alex Pereira, who could be had at plus 200 odds. What can you say about this fight? Well, Ankalaev in the first meeting between these two really fought well. Really surprised a lot of people, I would say, with his striking and not his grappling in that matchup. Not very quick to pursue takedowns or engage Pereira with grappling like myself and many others thought heading into that fight. Instead, it appeared like Pereira was obviously concerned with defending the takedown, very hesitant to throw his own offensive strikes early. And as a result, Ankalaev got to build an early lead and really control that fight throughout. He looked good. I knew going into that he has very good striking. He has very good striking defense. He's an extremely durable champion, never been knocked out. And obviously, that's the challenge when it comes to fighting a guy like Alex Pereira, who, in his title run prior to that matchup with Ankalaev, was largely opposing strikers, guys that would engage him where he is best at kickboxing range, and not really presenting him the challenge that Ankalaev did with the threat of the takedown and obviously the dominance that he has displayed on the mat in some fights before. Again, not necessarily convinced that Ankalaev will pursue takedowns here in this rematch. After seeing the success he had against Pereira on the feet in their first meeting, I would feel more confident if he does look to shoot more here in this fight. And I do think some adjustments do need to be made from that side. It's not just going to be that he can walk in and do the same exact thing against Pereira this time around. Pereira kind of alluding to injuries dealt with in the first meeting with Ankalaev, but I do just think, hands down, Ankalaev is the better fighter on a streak of 12 straight wins here currently. Really just fundamentally sound, not many holes in his game. And again, it will be a challenge for Pereira to catch him or just knock him out with one punch. It's going to take more kicks from Alex in this fight to make it competitive. I'd like to see more of those low leg kicks here early, something that we really did not get out of Pereira in their first meeting. If this is a healthier version of Poatan, then he's as dangerous as anyone. Obviously, we saw what he was capable of doing, not only as a light heavyweight champion, but as the middleweight champion as well. Obviously, as he's getting up here in age, it's going to be tougher for him to close the gap against a quality opponent like Ankalaev. So I am taking Ankalaev again in this matchup. I picked him the first time at near even money, and I can't really say that I'm confidently backing him at minus 250 in this spot against Pereira. But I do think he is going to get the win again. Should be able to, mind his P's and Q's, dictate the game plan in this fight, and keep Pereira from landing that seminal blow.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, mostly because of the change in the line here, right? I mean, first time around, close to a pick 'em. We were both on Ankalaev as a slight underdog. He won. I mean, it was convincing enough. I think no one really thought Pereira won, but that fight did play out closely. It really kind of came down to a round or two. Round four, Ankalaev kind of pulled away, had some big moments. But yeah, I mean, the big thing was Ankalaev mostly fighting out of the southpaw stance. It does kind of take away that leg kick that Pereira is kind of known for. So instead, he kind of has to throw that outside leg kick, which is not nearly as effective. Most of Pereira's volume, I don't know if it was most, but a lot of his volume was throwing that outside kick. But while he was doing that, Ankalaev was winning a lot of hand fighting, doing a really good job kind of, I don't know, keeping Pereira frozen at times so he could land strikes of his own. Obviously, outside leg kicks not quite the same as inside. it wasn't hurting him, and he kept moving forward. To your point, and I think everyone's point, we definitely thought we'd see Ankalaev grapple a little bit more, but I guess in hindsight, it wasn't too surprising that he didn't really go for it all that often. Only averages zero point 0.8 takedowns per 15 minutes in the UFC. Certainly has wrestling in his arsenal of attacks, but I think more than anything, what affected Alex was just kind of the fear of that takedown. And when Ankalaev did shoot, he did have excellent takedown defense, that being Alex. Obviously, training with Glover Teixeira for all these years has certainly shored up his grappling. I do think I'm with you in that I would like to see Ankalaev continue to go to that well, even if he's not successful, more as a means to just kind of keep Pereira guessing and on his back foot. If it's just striking pure and Pereira doesn't have to really worry about the takedown, I do think the line's too wide. It's just tough to really take a younger fighter in a rematch, especially in a title bout. Historically, that's never really gone too well. I'm trying to think of recent examples. There's not too many, but Volkanovski, when he got in there again against Islam, obviously, that was on kind of short notice. But usually it doesn't go good for the older guy who lost his belt, and usually the fight ends faster. I will say this: I do buy into a little bit of the Pereira injury stuff, but more so just the outside the cage stuff he was doing, kind of flying around, being a media darling, really kind of building his stock and his name, all different countries, just really just doing what a champ does. I mean, buying cars and all that good stuff. But this time he seems locked in. I do think the line's too wide. I don't think there's any value on Ankalaev if you're looking at minus 250 to minus 300. I mean, I agree that the skill gap is in favor of Ankalaev pretty much everywhere at this point in their respective careers, but Pereira does have that neutralizer, that equalizer, that left hook. He does have so much power in his hand. Even if he's losing most of the fight, if he just stays in it, he could catch Magomed with something. Ankalaev's durability has been solved to this point in his professional career, though. So yeah, I'm on the Ankalaev side, but I would say proceed with some caution. I don't mind maybe taking a shot on inside the distance. We're getting a much better price on that this time around. But yeah, I think the UFC would love Pereira to get the win because Ankalaev is one of the harder champions to market we've seen in recent years. Ulberg probably next in line for that title would set up a really good storyline. There's rumors Ulberg and Izzy have I don't know how true that is, but obviously Izzy had his history with Pereira for his quote unquote protege to take him on now would be really interesting. But yeah, I do think Ankalaev is the rightful favorite. I think the line's a little bit too wide, but it's tough not to back him as the younger fighter in a championship rematch.
All right, yep, with you on that one. We'll see about our co-main event. Merab Dvalishvili minus 400, even bigger favorite. Here facing Corey Sandhagen in defense of his bantamweight title. I think these odds may be, where they should be. All things considered, just looking at Merab as a whole, this 13-fight winning streak, a dominant champion, perhaps one of the best to ever do it in this sport. The way that Merab weaponizes cardio, mixes up his techniques, his striking has only gotten better. He's able to spend 4 rounds in his fights engaging with opponents on the feet, getting in, getting out, landing strikes, fighting clean. And again, just changing levels, the threat to always change levels, keeping opponents guessing. In a 5-round fight, there's going to be nobody that could really compete with Merab in terms of his cardio and just what the fight is going to look like in rounds 4 and rounds 5. Merab not known for his ability to finish fights necessarily, but getting a stoppage win against Sean O'Malley in his last defense of the title was very impressive. I think here, facing a guy like Sandhagen, it's going to be a difficult fight for Merab from the first minute to the last minute because Sandhagen is one guy that we have not really seen get tired in his fights before. Notably Sandhagen's bout against Umar Nurmagomedov taken down on 5 times in that matchup. Not necessarily the best in terms of his wrestling defense when put onto his butt is Corey Sandhagen, but he's a very effective grappler. He has good wrestling. He's able to take opponents down when he has the advantage there against them. But it's his striking that really gets the job done for Sandhagen. So good with his feints, so quick on his feet, dangerous for a bantamweight. And that's really what makes this fight interesting, just the fact that Sandhagen, you would figure at some point the guy that gets Merab Dvalishvili is going to be the one that catches him, that has the power to stop him. And Sandhagen certainly does pose those sorts of threats. I just feel like over the course of over the course of 5 rounds, Dvalishvili is going to be able to do what it seems like he always does and just grind out this win against an opponent that, while skilled, while elite in his own right, Merab is just on another level in terms of his cardio and his wrestling. Just fundamentally as well, the ability to go and get takedowns is something that I think Merab will be able to execute here against Sandhagen. Not in all of his fights have we seen Merab necessarily converting takedowns at a very high clip. One that was notable was the matchup against Peter Yan, where yes, Merab did score 11 takedowns, but that was only of 49 total attempts. I don't think Sandhagen's necessarily going to provide that much resistance when it comes to defending the initial shot, because he's confident in his own grappling and his get-ups. And while he can get up a bunch of times in this fight, I think Merab really won't have much trouble bringing him back down. So I'm you know what you're going to get out of Merab every time out. A super active champion. I think he warrants this price tag, and I think he is going to get the job done here against Sandhagen.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? And this is going to be a theme on this card, I think. There's a lot of favorites who I think we're going to pick, but we're going to say, or at least I'm going to say on this one, the line feels a little bit wide. Yeah, I mean, Sandhagen does a lot of the things that could give Merab trouble. And the issue I always have in handicapping Merab is when you watch him on film, he's really just, I don't know. It's kind of the same with Duplessis on his run. It doesn't look great. You see holes, you see opportunities for opponents to take advantage. It's just they never do. Merab, you said it, the cardio is definitely his greatest strength. He's a good wrestler, but it's not that he's super technically sound as much as he will chain takedowns together. He will go for 49 takedowns. And sure, you'll be able to work your way back to your feet, but excuse me, in doing that, you're going to tire yourself out. Sandhagen, most of his career training in the Denver altitude. I think he's still there now. We'll have Trevor Whitman, I believe, in his corner for this fight, which is certainly a good thing. But yeah, I mean, the path for him is probably be a KO. And it's tough to back a guy to find a KO if that's really his only path to victory. I have trouble expecting him to win a lot of minutes here. Rob should be able to push him against the cage. We saw that a lot in the Dillashaw fight against Sandhagen. Merab, really good cage control. And like you said, I do think he's going to be able to take him down. Guys like Figueiredo have taken Sandhagen down. Rob Font even took him down at one point. So I don't think he's going to be able to keep this fight standing where he will have a great advantage. But I just have trouble expecting him to win 3 rounds, which is what he's going to need here. Sorry, choking on my own words. But yeah, Merab's just on this tremendous run. I think he's going to continue to kind of clear out the bantamweight division for at least another year or so. The Umar rematch would be interesting if he could get his cardio up. Obviously, he looked good early in that fight, but there's not many other fighters in that division I would give much of a chance. I will say Corey stylistically does have the type of strikes that could maybe finish someone like Merab. Obviously, Frankie Edgar far past his prime, but a short guy looking for takedown entries. I mean, I don't know. He found a knee there. I mean, we saw the head kick against Moraes. He's very flashy in his striking. Maybe he could catch him off guard with something. But outside of that, I just think Merab's going to be able to kind of rinse repeat with the takedowns, compete enough in the striking where he's able to dictate where this fight goes, and that's really going to be the difference here. I can't say I'm super confident at this price, but Merab definitely the rightful favorite. Sandhagen in a lot of ways similar to O'Malley, but a better scrambler. I think that's the difference here. If anything, I would probably take Merab by decision. But yeah, I think the line's too wide, but Merab's certainly the pick and the rightful favorite.
All right. Next up, we will look at our featured bout. This a fight at light heavyweight as well between 2 former title challengers. We have Yuri Prohaska minus 185, the betting favorite in this matchup against Khalil Roundtree, who could be had at plus 150. Nick, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, this one's really interesting. You know me, I love Jerry, probably my favorite light heavyweight on the roster. It has been for a long time. Nice win over Jamal Hill his last time out. He's looked good against pretty much everyone not named Alex Pereira. But his style is dangerous for a matchup like this one, given Khalil's ability to kind of land counters. I think the winner of this fight is going to be who is able to kind of dictate where it goes. I think it's going to be Jerry. I do think he's the rightful favorite. But definitely proceed with some caution. I know he's working on his head movement. It's still a major issue for him. Jiri has never learned to check leg kicks, continues to not check leg kicks. Khalil has a very strong leg kick. We saw Khalil last time out against Jamal Hill just kind of pick him apart at range, circle away. Hill just I don't know. It seemed like he slowly gave up in that fight. One thing we do know is Jerry's not going to do that. Even if he's losing early, he's going to continue to come forward, continue to pressure Khalil. And we have to go ways back, excuse me, into Khalil's earlier career. But the guys that do have success against him are the ones who are able to pressure him and force him to move backwards. I mean, the win over Hill picked him apart at range. Anthony Smith is Anthony Smith, but Jacoby Dawkins. I mean, the wins are nice, but he's getting rated so highly because of that. Excuse me, that loss to Alex Pereira, and it's really that loss that has people kind of regarding him so highly right now. I mean, the Hill win definitely solidified that a little bit. That was not an impressive performance. It's not a fun fight to go rewatch. Like he just picked them apart, won every round by a little bit. Didn't really do much to chase the finish. Should have probably been able to get it if he wanted it. Jiri's never going to have that style of fight. So I like Prohashka here, but you got to be careful. If he's crashing into the pocket, Khalil does have really, really solid countering ability with his kicks. I mean, and the leg kicks are definitely going to be an issue for him here if he's not careful. So yeah, I think we're going to be a little bit nervous as Jerry fans in this one. But yeah, I think if he can kind of force Khalil to move backwards, he should be able to eventually get to him. I think Jerry probably by late KO after kind of weathering an early storm, eating too many leg kicks like we saw against Rakic at UFC 300. He's my pick here, but can't say I'm confident. Khalil is a very tricky style for him. Also, a southpaw is Khalil Roundtree, not necessarily a good thing for someone like Jerry, who does like to fight in both stances, but could quickly become uncomfortable if he's eating too many kicks.
Yeah, great analysis there. I really see the fight playing out very similar as you had described. There'll probably be Prohaska having to deal with a more, sustainable, better defensive striker in Roundtree. As Jury looks for openings and constantly switches stances, I think Roundtree will find success by just staying solid, keeping his composure, and landing those counters and straight attacks against Jiri early. But as you had described, Prohaska has the ability to fight through tough situations early, and he just finds a way to win on the other side of it. He is a fighter's fighter. I consider Roundtree a bit one-dimensional with his Muay Thai attack first, mediocre boxing, and just a lack of ground skills to be seen as well. I'd say Prohaska is far more dynamic. Obviously takes more risks, but he can respond to those situations where he is knocked down, recover rather quickly. And while Roundtree is more consistent with his defensive approach than Prohaska, he isn't going to have those same big moments when it comes to striking, unless he does land a counter on Prohaska as he moves in. Jiri should be able to, I think, put on a pace throughout these 3 rounds that eventually does, see Roundtree break down, whether that be seating to the mat, where I would say Prohaska does have the advantage over him, whether that be landing ground strikes or even working, on his own grappling down there, or simply catching Roundtree on the feet as this fight goes into the latter half. I think Prohaska is going to be in a couple of tough positions here early in this fight, but that's pretty much how it always plays out for him. And again, he just finds a way to win. He's one of these fighters like Marab that, even though not optically, as you go and review the tape, you say he's doing these things the right way, but still finding a way to get his hand raised at the end of the day. So that's really what matters. This is a fight that I could definitely see going the distance as well. A lot of these Prohaska fights normally do end inside with one guy, getting hurt pretty badly. But just the durability we've seen out of Roundtree before and his ability to fight in 5-round main events as well. Would not surprise me if this ends up going to judge's decision. And, Prohaska perhaps getting the nod in that manner because he ends up, putting forth a bit more volume, doing a bit more. Would not surprise me to see either guy get that early knockdown, though. So certainly a volatile fight. Not one that I'm comfortable, laying that number with Yuri very, very heavily. All right, let's move on now to this matchup between Yusuf Zalal minus 550, the betting favorite, against Josh Emmett, who can be had at plus 375. Quite an attractive price on Josh Emmett, the betting underdog. For this matchup at featherweight, worth noting, Josh Emmett now 41 years old and probably doesn't have too many wins ahead of him left in his UFC career. Loser in 3 of his last 4 fights, but going up against super high level competition. The losses, Yair Rodriguez for the interim featherweight title, uh, you know, current lightweight champion Ilya Topuria, and Lerone Murphy in his most recent performance. But Emmett does possess that power that always makes him a live underdog, regardless of the opponent that he faces. Yusuf Zalal at minus 550 is just somebody that I cannot get behind. I've had an issue, perhaps trying to fade Zalal a bit too much. I just think he's been overvalued since returning to the UFC. He's good. I just don't think he's that good. And while he warranted the minus 500 price tag in his last fight against Calvin Kattar, I think this is a similar matchup. And I think Emmett, obviously has a lot more tools to end the fight than a guy like Kattar does. They're both pretty, rudimentary boxing first guys, walking forward, keeping a high guard and trying to land power strikes. It's just the power strikes from Emmett can put you out with one punch, where you aren't getting that same threat from a Calvin Kattar. I think Zalal, while he should be poised to look really good in this fight, landing a higher number of strikes than Emmett, and if he gets his grappling going, he probably will look like a minus 500 favorite in this spot. It's just I'm not convinced that he necessarily will do so. I'll plug our article for Dine Sports on Saturday morning, where we do give our official pick and prediction for each one of these fights. I could end up flipping, but for the time being, that number on Emmett is going to get me. I'm going to be taking him here as the underdog. Just hoping that he's able to connect with Zalal. Again, somebody who just does a lot well, but nothing too exceptionally, and oftentimes engaging with opponents with the strikes. If he's not going to go and shoot on Emmett here early, he's going to be in a dangerous situation against the division's best power puncher. So I think Emmett is an attractive underdog at this price, and I'd suggest taking a look at him.
Yeah, the price is absolutely insane to me. Leroy Murphy wasn't as big of a favorite against Emmett as Zalal is, and Emmett won, I think, at least one round of that fight, maybe two. So yeah, Emmett obviously getting up there in age. Zalal, tremendous footwork, able to fight out of both stances, really good submission grappler, going to put out volume. He definitely mixes in the kicks better than someone like Josh Emmett. He's pretty long for the division as well. Emmett kind of plotting, especially at this point in his career, often looking to kind of set up those power shots. He does kind of start to repeat combos at times, telegraph some of his strikes. But it's tricky because Zalal, I mean, against Kattar, he looked good for 2 rounds. Then he ran away for the entire third. I mean, terrible showing there. They haven't booked him since, and now they're giving him Emmett. And I'm with you, man. The line is insane. Like, I can't fully wrap my head around it. I do think Zalal has the footwork and the speed and the agility and potentially the submission ability to justify being the favorite here. Youth as well, obviously, almost 10 years younger. But Emmett, man, he's always tricky as an underdog. And this camp, he's training with TJ Dillashaw, says he's in the best shape of his life. And not that Dillashaw is like some tremendous coach or anything, but a guy who failed for steroids multiple times. Emmett already a guy who appears to be on something. When you look at the abs on his gut, it's just not human at all. Already a physical freak, and if he makes weight easily here, and he can kind of go out and pressures a lot for 15 minutes, he's going to look much better than what this price is indicating. I think Zalal's clearest path might be to kind of get some cage control and maybe try to jump onto his back from there. It's going to be hard to take him down with a traditional single or double leg. Emmett trains at Team Alpha Male. He's been there for years. Really solid wrestler defensively. I mean, guys like Topuria were able to take him down, but a big reason for that was just that he was getting battered on the feet. So I think Zalal is the side. He's probably my pick, but I'm with you, man. I'm not 100% on it. I would love to convince myself to flip to the Josh Emmett side. This is crazy value. Plus 400 some books right now is just absolutely insane. And yeah, he's coming off a fight. He lost to Murphy, but he was competitive. Obviously, Starch Mitchell lost to the champ. I mean, he's still on a decent run, even in his old age. The guys he's losing to are really tough. And yeah, the Kattar performance for Zalal looked amazing for 2 rounds, but he couldn't keep it up. And if you start to kind of run away for a third round against Emmett, to your point, I mean, Emmett certainly could turn his lights out much easier than someone like Kattar could. And Kattar was landing on him, even with Zalal running away. So I do think Zalal's the side here, but I'm still looking for reasons to flip to Emmett. Yeah, man, the line's just off.
All right. Next, let's look at the card that will open the pay-per-view main card, 10 o'clock. We have middleweights Joe Pyfer, minus 280 now, the betting favorite, against Bruce Magomedov, who we had at plus 220. Little action coming in on Pyfer this week, driving up the price tag. Not really surprising. I mean, this is a guy who appeared off Dana White's Contender Series, kind of got a lot of the push from the promotion marketing behind him. Looking good recently. I mean, wins against Kelvin Gastelum and Marc-Andre Barriault in his last two times out. The June fight against Gastelum was a okay performance, but not necessarily the best out of Pyfer. Two knockdowns in that spot were really impressive, but that wasn't a great version of Gastelum that we were seeing. Missed weight, in that spot, or didn't miss weight in that spot, but just missed weight again. And somebody who's just not always putting forth the best effort in each of his performances. Pyfer, however, just continues to build. Looks to be learning from his past mistakes, improving cardio in each of his performances. He's a big middleweight, somebody with power, and likely in good position to strike here against a opponent in Magomedov that really likes to get after it on the feet, utilizes great front kicks and kicks against his opponent in general. Pyfer also somebody that can hold his own grappling against Magomedov, which I think is what causes a lot of issues for the guys that end up locked in the cage with him. Magomedov, very comfortable when his fights hit the mat, but also a dangerous striker who's light on his feet and very quick to attack his opponents. The big knock on Magomedov is that his cardio, his gas tank is probably worse than that we have seen of Pyfer. Really a bit of a one-round fighter. He's always going to do his best work there early in the fight, whereas I trust Pyfer to withstand that early storm and probably win out as this fight gets into rounds 2 and round 3. If it even gets there, again, with these two dynamic strikers on the feet, it would not surprise me to see a knockout materialize. Again, Pyfer, with that big power that he does possess, I think he's more likely to score that knockout here. So I will be picking him to win by stoppage in this fight, although not really as confident as this price tag or as this number would suggest. Again, continuing to gain steam. We could see him at minus 300 or even some worse than that come fight time. And at that point, there's really not that much value betting him in my eyes. Magomedov certainly can hang with these top tier guys at middleweight. But yeah, the pick for me is going to be Joe Pyfer.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I do think Pyfer, he's been underrated to a point that it's kind of leveling out now. Magomedov, I don't know. He's pretty good everywhere. And you look at his only losses in the UFC to Strickland, where he looked amazing for a round and then just kind of gassed out and faded away. And then Calvarello, who obviously a lot of people kind of consider one of the best fighters in the division, top five-ish. Obviously, not quite the level of the best, but he's up there. But since then, I mean, the wins are over an old Warley Alves, Bruno Ferreira, who's kind of undersized, Michel Pereira, who's looked terrible. But then you go to the Pyfer side, and Kelvin's way undersized for the weight class. Barriault's getting up there in years. It's just tough to know what to expect here. So I think the line's a little bit wide. I think Abus, in most of the fights he's finding success, he has that big size, length, and strength advantage. I don't think he's going to have any of those here. So I am siding with Pyfer, but I think in terms of like technical striking ability and like the ability to kind of feint into counters, Abus is a little bit better at that. I also really like Abus's front kicks. Maybe he can land something into Pyfer's midsection, maybe catch him that way. But yeah, if the fight hits the mat, I think they're pretty neutral. I think either guy could take the other down. And whoever's down should be able to work their way back to the feet with relative ease. Both of them pretty terrible cardio. So if someone does find a way to maybe improve in that area, it's tough to expect that from fight to fight at this level. But maybe that's where the advantage lies. But I think more than anything, Abu's 78-inch reach listed against Pyfer's 75. I don't know. Usually he has a massive reach advantage over most of his opponents. We saw in the Strickland fight, like he looked great early, but as soon as Strickland started to get that pressure going, that's where he started to wane. Pyfer is a guy who, when he's at his best, is pressuring his opponents. Gastelum, he was doing it early, and then he just kind of stopped for some reason, which was super frustrating to see. I'm hoping he learns from that performance because if he pressures Abus here, I think he could find an early finish. But if they're trading, going back and forth, just like you strike, I take you down, you take me down, this is going to play out much closer than the line suggests. I do like Pfeiffer here, hoping he is very aggressive early, but I'm never super confident in this kid. He's been pretty inconsistent to this point. But I do think Abus, he's going to be a little bit outsized here, and that's rare for him.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. Again, that size, that power advantage for Pfeiffer perhaps going to be the difference in that one. All right, next up, we will move on to the prelim portion of this card. I do believe this Teba Gautier fight is still going to be our featured prelim, but seeing it
Yep.
conflicting, whether opening or closing the prelims of this card. However, yep, a Teba Gautier. Minus 1,000, the betting favorite here against Tristan Vines, who could be had at 6-1. Gautier getting debutante here, Vines, on short notice after originally booked to face Ozzy Diaz in this spot, looking at pretty much the same odds as that initial booking. I looked into this Vines kid. He hasn't looked great on the regional scene. I say that just because of very low quality level opponents that he has been facing. Seems like a pretty skilled grappler, coming out of that, regional scene. But just what do we really expect in this matchup? Guys taking the fight on about a week notice against somebody widely regarded as the best power puncher in this weight class. Albeit we haven't really seen Gautier challenge yet, still new to the promotion. Just a lot of hype around him as a prospect. Mini Ngannou, a lot of people calling him, fighting out of Cameroon, but just embodying that same one punch knockout that Ngannou was obviously famous for. This guy is a physical specimen, an absolute freak. Not sure how he's making this middleweight cut seemingly so easily, but just a natural born fighter with ungodly power. He's going to be throwing these power shots at any chance that he gets, having time at distance against Vines. Obviously, Vines will probably be looking to shoot in, get this fight to the mat, spend as little time as possible there standing and trading strikes with, this big threatening fighter in Gautier. Could have some success, getting the fight down there, but I really do not expect him to hold Gautier down to the mat for the whole duration of this fight. He trains with a great team. Obviously, I think grappling defense has been a key in his development, in his training, because everyone is going to be looking to drag you down to the mat when you possess fight-ending power like Gautier does. I do think he is going to be able to find that knockout here in this fight. It was interesting against Diaz, just given the chin that Diaz has displayed in some points of his prior career. With Vines, not necessarily as confident, just given the short notice nature of this booking. But obviously, got to expect the big hype prospect to get the win here by knockout in this fight.
Yeah, on these pay-per-views, we always have to ask, like, what does the UFC want? What are they marketing? They're marketing Gautier. It's very obvious. Even the matchup with Diaz seemed like a kind of a crazy booking at this point. This guy already has 2 KO finishes in the UFC. I know he's young at 23 years old, but test him a little bit. Like this guy Vines coming in, like you said, he can grapple, kind of. He's probably going to be undersized here. He was booked for a middleweight fight. So while he normally fights down at 170 pounds, excuse me, he should have the frame, at least for this division moving forward. But in all 3 of his professional losses, finished by KO against questionable level of opponents. Gautier training more at Extreme Couture lately with the likes of Sean Strickland, Chris Curtis, probably learning a lot. Very young. I mean, just so much raw athleticism, similar to a young Ngannou. Don't necessarily need to be all that technical. In a matchup like this, you really don't. I think he's going to absolutely steamroll here. You're right, the line opened around minus 1,000. Looking across the books right now, there's still 1,100. Everywhere else, it's inflated to minus 15 to minus 1,800. If you're going to bet this, maybe just go round 1 KO. Or if you want to get really frisky, maybe round 2, and hopefully Vines can take him down. But yeah, no reason to really invest too much here at this price. It's absolutely insane. I wish the UFC would just kind of book him against a grappler. I mean, I don't know who necessarily, maybe like a Bruno Pereira. If Mearshart was a little bit younger, I'd say maybe someone like him, even a Stoltzfus at this stage. Like, test him somewhat. Like, this is just not a great matchup at all. And like, what do you really gain from this other than the highlight reel? Like, it's not like he's improving much, just steamrolling these guys. So it is what it is. Gaudier is probably going to get the round one KO here with relative ease. Vines really don't rate him all that highly at all. I mean, he wasn't really on the UFC's radar in a major way. Maybe he would have been with a win in LFA in his upcoming fight, but not someone they book for Contender Series. Has some brutal KO losses already. I don't imagine he's on the roster for very long. So this is a squash match. Probably shouldn't be sanctioned, but is what it is. Gaudier, highlight reel, probably quick.
And again, it's like they're looking, oh, who wants to fight this guy on 4 days' notice? This could be the only guy that put his hand up. So maybe the reason why this matchup is getting booked. But yeah, got to go with Gaudier there. Next up, let's look at this fight at middleweight. This is interesting. Edmund Shabazian minus 350, the betting favorite here against Andre Muniz. To be had at plus 270, the underdog. Shabazian's been improving with each fight. Not that good when facing grapplers historically. So this matchup against Muniz should be a good test for him. But the takedown defense has been improving. We saw that in his last fight too against Andre Petroski. Did not get held down really at all, despite being taken down on a couple occasions there. I think Shabazian, it's going to be the same story in this matchup, as Muniz going to be able to get a really quick takedown and, put Shabazian in those positions that we've seen him stumped before in the past. But otherwise, while he's at space, obviously Shabazian much quicker, more dynamic and powerful striker. The Muniz wins recently are not the most impressive. He's a guy getting up there in age as well. Current streak of 3-3 over the course of his last 6 fights. The wins a bit mediocre. I mean, a split decision win against Jung Yun Park that, even arguable if he won that fight, as well as the 3 losses, all stoppages against the likes of Brendan Allen, Ikram Aliskerov, and Paul Craig. I mean, the last win in Paul Craig's career, we just saw him retire a couple weeks here ago. So yeah, I don't think Muniz is really going to be competing with a lot of guys here at this level. If Shabazian is who he thinks he is, somebody who can hang with the top 15 middleweights, and if he has addressed those issues that maligned him in his early UFC career, this is a matchup that he should win. And Shabazian by knockout will be the play for me. I think he should stuff those takedowns from Muniz, who's a credentialed black belt, one of the best grapplers the UFC has seen. It's just, can't rely on him to go out and get those takedowns. And yeah, I think Shabazian has decisive striking advantage against him in this fight. Should be able to find that knockout somewhere, perhaps round 2 or round 3.
Yeah, Shabazian is one of these fighters that's wildly inconsistent. We had Jake Matthews last week. Controversial with the way that one played out, but it's tough to get on these guys, even as favorites in good matchups, because you never know which version of them is going to show up. Muniz, kind of the same in a lot of ways, but he is in many ways just that one-trick pony. Really good jiu-jitsu, kind of struggles to get the fight to the mat. But you have to wonder, like, Shabazian switched to Extreme Couture, really kind of slowed down his game because he's a guy who kind of cardio dunked and would have trouble kind of finishing 3-round fights if he didn't find that early finish. Last time out, he beats Petroski convincingly, but it goes to the scorecards, and that's not aging well after last week. Probably a guy who should have been able to finish pretty easily. Muniz here, I feel the same way, but it's almost like when Johnny Walker went to SGB Ireland. Like, they took away the one thing that made him good. They really just kind of turned down the volume, made him start to point fight so he preserved the cardio, and that wasn't a good thing. And then sure enough, Johnny last time out looked better because he was super aggressive, just shot out of a cannon, and that was Extreme Couture. So maybe they know that about Edmund as well. I'm hoping as much. As this fight wears on, Muniz will be live, but he is a guy who we've seen quit in there. His cardio has been inconsistent as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see him put the gloves down if he doesn't get the finish here. Only 35 years old, but a really long career with jiu-jitsu and everything else. I like Shabazian. I think he's better on the feet. I just want him to be aggressive. If he's going to come out, go low volume, try to preserve that cardio for the first round, I think it could be a very, very dicey fight if Muniz is able to take him to the mat from there. Because again, Muniz, if anything, does have that excellent jiu-jitsu. I just think Edmund is someone who has the speed on the feet to probably finish him pretty quickly. So I like Edmund here, probably via round 1 KO. But he's one of these guys that is just always terrifying to back as a favorite.
Okay. Next, let's take a look at this men's bantamweight matchup. Fareed Basharat minus 550, the betting favorite against Chris Gutierrez. Could be had at plus 375. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, the line on this one feels a little bit wide, not gonna lie. But at the same time, I'm more confident in Basharat than I am in some of these other guys that are in the minus 300 to 400 range. Basharat, the undefeated of the Basharat brothers, coming off a solid win over Victor Hugo, Taylor Lapilus, Clayton Rodriguez, the Monk Blackshear. I mean, not the best level of competition, but pretty solid when you compare him to what Gutierrez has been doing recently. Gutierrez was on a run a couple years ago, taking on ranked opponents, competitive against guys like Pedro Munoz, where he was kind of at a high. But since then, I mean, super inconsistent, always low volume, and more than anything, he's pretty easy to take down. On the feet, this could be competitive. Gutierrez obviously has those really solid leg kicks, but Poshrat, he's able to kind of switch stances, really kind of tricky with the footwork, and he's able to kind of use moments between striking exchanges to find takedowns, and I think he's going to be able to get them pretty easily here. Boschred averages just under 4 takedowns per 15 minutes, and Gutierrez terrible on his back. Like, doesn't really fish for submissions and doesn't really try to get up. He just kind of closes his guard to protect himself, which is terrible if you're trying to win fights. So I do like Fareed here. I think he could either find the submission or win via decision. So it's tough to really find a betting angle. But I think as far as the bigger favorites go, I do like him. The one fear is that we see this more with his brother than with him. These guys do kind of fight down to the level of their opponent at times. They just kind of like to be in there fighting, and I don't know. If you're going to fight down to Gutierrez's level, this could be just a low volume striking fight, in which case I wouldn't feel good about this price. But as long as he gets the grappling going, I think he's going to cover this line pretty easily. Definitely a really interesting prospect. And Gutierrez does seem to be on a pretty rapid decline in terms of his overall ability.
Yeah, perhaps a fight if booked a few years ago, a bit more competitive, but I would have to favor Basharat here in this matchup too. You mentioned the issues regarding Gutierrez grappling defense. Again, a 70% takedown defense as far as the stats go. It's just no skills in terms of the get up or in terms of intelligently fighting back to his feet when opponents do get him down to the mat. Bushrod is somebody who, at times, a bit too willing to stand and strike with his opponents, but his team tends to normally have a good game plan for him. He mixes it up, he goes for those takedowns, and yeah, I expect him to get those takedowns in today's matchup against Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez winning both of his last two fights, but I mean, pretty moderate favorite in both of those matchups. Close decision, his last time out. If this is a fight that plays out, entirely on the feet, I'd still end up picking Basharat, although Gutierrez does have a slight technical striking edge. Basharat's somebody who, switches stances frequently, lands kicks from both sides, super comfortable taking leg kicks as well, something that, is a pivotal part in Gutierrez's offensive game plan each fight, throwing those low leg kicks. Basharat's used to that, used to throwing his own, taking those. So I don't think he's going to run into any problems with Gutierrez while this fight's on the feet, and neither one of these two are really known for their power. So the fight plays out like that, yeah, probably going to decision, and probably Basharat landing the higher volume attack over the course of 15 minutes, but more decisively winning this fight by going down to the ground, perhaps threatening with submissions or even finding a win by submission here facing Gutierrez. Certainly think he's the right side in this one, and yeah, undefeated, no reason to go against him yet with this quality opponent standing across from him. All right, so we will now look at this next fight. Daniel Santos minus 160 against Ju Sang Yu, who would be had at plus 135. This is a fight at featherweight. He's a strong guy, Ju Sang Yu, at featherweight. I mean, big power. He's somebody who can brawl, stand and trade with opponents. Could be a dangerous game plan here in round one against a guy like Wiley Cat Santos, who's sometimes just, fired out of a cannon, goes at you, willing to engage very early on. But Santos is one of these shootbox Diego Lima guys that, while he's comfortable with his striking, confident in his Muay Thai attacks, he mixes it up plenty. He likes to create these grappling scrambles, and that's where he should be at the advantage here in this fight against Ju Sang Yu. Santos, capable submission grappler, somebody who likes to threaten, using his jiu-jitsu skills on the mat. And while Yu is the bigger fighter, perhaps even stronger than Wiley Cad, who was formerly competing down at bantamweight, if he does get taken down to the mat, I don't know if size is going to be enough to get up against, again, a quality grappler in Santos who could very well hold him down. Still, I think Yu very capable on the feet. The advantage in size. I'd like to see weigh in before I make my pick official on this fight. Again, Santos shouldn't have any problems making weight up at 145 pounds, but really just to see how these two do square up. I'm thinking that Juseng Yu is going to be quite a bit bigger, and I think that power is going to be felt throughout this fight. While Santos is going to be most dangerous early in round one, I think Yu is going to continue to land powerful strikes throughout rounds 2 and 3 of this fight, and for that reason, he's an attractive underdog selection for me. So for the time being, I am leaning that way. But I'm eager to hear your thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, this is a tricky one for a few reasons. I think first and foremost because we don't know exactly how good Juseng Yu is. I mean, he's looked tremendous in the UFC. Really quick KOs though, so it's not like he's been tested extensively against top level opponents. He's one of these guys that trains under Korean Zombie. A lot of people are touting him as like the best of that group. These young Korean fighters that train with TKZ. They call him, I think, Zombie Junior as his nickname. In a lot of ways, he's similar. Very aggressive striker, decent grappling ability, defensively in scrambles. He does have some jujitsu, but certainly prefers to stand and trade. But yeah, it's just tricky because Santos, I mean, he has some intangibles that make him kind of a questionable fighter to back as well. He pulled out of, I think, 5 fights since he's been in the UFC. That's up there as far as numbers go, albeit most of those down at bantamweight. He did look good last time out against Shi Young Lee, another Korean fighter, now up at 145 pounds. He was scheduled to take on another Korean fighter in Doo Ho Choi. Choi actually pulled out of that one, but I do think Santos is finally comfortable here at 145 pounds. The issue is, to your point, he is going to be undersized. Yu has a 4 to 5 inch reach advantage here on the feet, which is going to be difficult for Santos to close at times. He is hyper aggressive, but he's there to be countered. And Yu obviously has shown tremendous power. I will say Santos moving up a weight class should only improve his durability, and this is a guy who's never been KO'd professionally. But these shoot-a-box guys, I mean, they take a ton of damage in the gym, so it's tough to know if he's ever really been knocked out or not. I mean, we haven't seen it in a professional fight, but maybe in the gym he has. I don't know. But yeah, I think this fight comes down to how highly you regard you as a prospect. I mean, I've been pretty impressed by him, but at the same time, Santos is definitely a major step up in competition. And more than anything, I think the matchmakers, what they're doing here is they're giving him a fighter who's durable, who's going to extend him, maybe put him through some adversity to see what he really is. Because when you're knocking guys out in a few seconds, like this was Pfeiffer early in his career, you don't really know what you had until he took on someone like Hermanson who was able to extend him. Obviously, lower level, lower weight class, but in a lot of ways, kind of a similar matchup. So I do like the Santos side, but I don't know. I want to dig into this Yu guy a little bit more. I've already watched a bunch of film, but I want to hear some interviews and I don't know, kind of really see what his grappling is like. He does have some wins by submission. Seems like he does train jiu-jitsu regularly, but again, so many question marks around this kid. I think he's the higher ceiling of these two as far as their career trajectory goes. They're both very young. But that being said, I mean, I don't know what the floor is for Juseng Yu. I think Santos, we've seen the best and the worst of him. And at his best, this seems like a test he should be able to pass, but super volatile matchup, which is probably why the line is as close as it is. I'll side with Santos for now. But another underdog, I'm kind of looking for reasons to take. Wouldn't mind going with you here if I could find a few more.
Okay. Next up, let's take a look at this bantamweight matchup between Macy Chiasson and Yana Santos. Maybe one of these two Santos will get a win come Saturday. This Yana Santos, no relation, by the way, plus 160 the underdog against Chiasson, who could be had at minus 200. Kind of tough to handicap right now. Chiasson always somebody who I want to see come weigh-ins. Huge for bantamweight, formerly competing at featherweight in her UFC career. Well, Santos is just standing 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Chiasson has 72-inch reach and stands 5'11" in this fight. Huge advantage for her in terms of size. But in terms of skill, I think Yana Santos is much better. Continuing to impress despite her current age, winning her last two fights. Definitely an intriguing underdog here in what I consider a close one. Santos really impressed me in that most recent performance against Misha Tate. Stopping the takedowns, looking really good on the feet. Again, it's just this matchup against Jason. It's going to be difficult for her to land any really effective strikes in my eyes against somebody with that reach advantage. While Jason doesn't really always respond well to fighters getting in her face and throwing out their offense, she can always land big counters. She has the power advantage just given the size that she has against these girls. And again, this is a fight likely going to go to decision. Neither one of these two known for their potent finishing skills. And if that's the case, I would much rather be holding the ticket on the plus money underdog. It's just a question for me whether she will be able to overcome the size disadvantage that she is at. I do lean the way of her as the underdog in the spot currently. And yeah, I would just never bet Macy Chase on as a 2-1 favorite, really, against any of the girls that I could think of in the UFC. She's a pretty inconsistent fighter. And yeah, while she has size, she really doesn't have skill to be going up against the best of the best in the world. Not to say that Yana Santos is that, but it would not surprise me to see her being the one getting the win here this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it about other fighters on this card already. These two are both pretty inconsistent. I mean, we've seen different versions of them where they look good, versions where they look terrible. Chiesa looked terrible last time out. Santos looked good for 2 rounds until Tate realized that she wrestled and finally took her down and almost finished her. But yeah, I mean, I think the big advantage for Chiesa on here, more than even the reach, is the grappling ability. I think that size on the mat could be enough for her to kind of keep Santos grounded if she can find those takedowns. Just will she even go for them? And while the reach advantage is nice if she's kind of peppering out that jab, Chieson's best striking actually takes place in the clinch. So I don't know that she's necessarily going to be able to utilize that to her full advantage here. I think the size for Chieson and the strength and the ability to take the fight to the mat is why she's the favorite. I will say, though, I'm kind of with you. I think the line is too wide. I do want to see what these two look like at face-offs. I also want to see how Macy does on the scale. I mean, she struggles to make featherweight. This is back up, or she struggled to make flyweight, right? Or she's back up at bantamweight here. So I don't know. Two girls who've been fine on the scale for the most part, but Chieson, I always kind of hold my breath when she's making bantamweight. We want to see what she looks like. She does have Safe Side in her corner, who's an excellent coach, but coming off that Vieira performance, it's just, I don't know. It's just tough to want to back her as a favorite at all. If I knew she was going to aggressively pursue takedowns, I would be on that side. But yeah, I do think the value's on Santos. So for now, I'll lean with Macy, but another one I can see myself flipping maybe based on weigh-ins, things like that. But I think if Macy grapples, she'll look like the favorite. If she doesn't, though, she could be in a lot of trouble because Santos is, to your point, the better technical striker of the two.
All right, now let's move on and start looking at these early prelims. We got Patchy Mix minus 330, the betting favorite here against Jacob Willox, who can be had at plus 260. Yeah. Jacob Wicklax is former KSW Bantamweight champion, currently on a 6-fight winning streak. This guy's a strong grappler at Bantamweight, good chokes, confident in his grappling, and facing a grappler here in Patchy Mix. Now, I say that, although in his UFC debut, Patchy Mix did not grapple. Patchy Mix did not look good at all. And despite that, Patchy Mix is still minus 330, the favorite here in his sophomore performance in the UFC. This is a former bantamweight champion in Bellator. Should have actually the striking advantage here facing an opponent in Wicklox who does like to grapple as well. Yes, while Mix did underwhelm in that debut, it was against Mario Bautista, now a fighter on an 8-fight winning streak at bantamweight, booked in his next fight against Umar Nurmagomedov. He's going to be at a size advantage here against Wicklox. He's going to be the bigger guy, the better grappler, the better striker. And Mix is somebody who has never in his career been submitted. If Wicklox wants to bring him down to the mat here, engage him grappling, I don't really think he's going to find any success at all against Mix, unless Mix is just done, a complete bomb. I don't think that's the case. This guy's uber talented. I think it was the bright lights in his UFC debut that kind of got to him. Added in a great opponent in Mario Batista, his opposite. And on top of that, perhaps just not wanting to grapple and look like a boring fighter as he introduces himself to UFC fans, engaging with the striking a bit more than Mix is normally comfortable with. I think we should see him, back in his element in this fight, forced to engage on the mat against an opponent in Wicklocks, who I don't think can hang with him. So yeah, I do think Mix is going to come through here, get the win, and look the part as the favorite that he did not in his UFC debut a few months ago.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't get the grappling going. I don't think because he couldn't. I mean, the footwork of Batista is definitely his greatest strength, and that's why he's fighting pretty much a title eliminator his next time out. But yeah, I think the UFC knows what they're doing here. Whitlax is a talented fighter. I actually rate KSW as one of the better regional promotions out of Poland. But when you look at his record, I mean, he's fought the same guy 5 times. It's kind of crazy. Sebastian Perbix is the even harder name to pronounce. Kid's pretty talented as well, but had the grappling advantage over him in most of those spots. He's not going to have that here. I think you're right about the size when it comes to like muscle density and strength, but Whitlax is the taller fighter. He does have length to his advantage, but unlike some of the others we're describing, he doesn't really know how to use it all that well. He'll throw out a jab, but more as just a means to kind of set up his takedowns. And if this fight does hit the mat, I do rate Mix as the much better grappler. We saw Mix struggle against Magomed Magomedov a few fights back. Fight he won, but I actually thought he lost when you rewatch it. But Magomedov, really skilled wrestler, able to reverse. Wicklac's more of a jiu-jitsu player, so I don't think that's necessarily going to be an issue for him here. Wicklax does have some power, but Mix has been very durable on the feet. He ate, I think, 170 strikes or something against Mario Batista. And while the performance was terrible, he was putting out a ton of volume. So against someone like Wicklax, who's nowhere near the level of Mario Batista, I do think he's going to have some success. And yeah, it's kind of funny. He's buried on the prelims now, is what it is. But I do think they want to get him back in the win column. This is not like the guys coming in from Contender Series who get 10K to show, 10K to win. He's probably making 100K plus to show. So they want to build his stock back up. And no better way to do that than against the guy who has a similar style, but is a little bit worse at it. Mix is an excellent wrestler, great jiu-jitsu. Wicklax has good opportunistic jiu-jitsu, but against a sound wrestler like this, I don't think he's really going to be able to get his game going. And if this does take place on the feet, I do think Mix is actually the better technical striker with the superior footwork. Wicklax's not someone who really knows how to use his size. So I'm interested in Wicklax in some matchups. I think he'll be a fun fighter to have, but I don't know that he's really top 15 worthy. Mix, I don't really think is ever going to be a champ in the UFC, but I think he is someone who could kind of fight his way back into the rankings starting here in this matchup. So I like him here. I can see him finding the submission or maybe a ground and pound KO. Wouldn't be shocked if it went the distance. Wicklax is very durable, but I could see him maybe making a mistake coming out of KSW a little bit too confident in that grappling in a division there where there's a lot of strikers. But we'll see. I think Wicklax, there are some unknowns, but the same issues Mix maybe had last time out, first time in the UFC, bright lights. I don't know that Wicklax does because KSW, honestly, they put on similar shows. It's like fireworks indoors and crap. It's pretty funny. But yeah, just the level of competition, I think this is a huge step up. And one thing neither of us touched on was Mix took that fight on short notice. He's going to have a full camp here, which I think plays to his advantage as well.
Okay. Next, let's take a look at this matchup at welterweight between Punahele Soriano and Nikolai Vereteknikov. Soriano minus 330, the betting favorite here, while Vereteknikov could be had at plus 260. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I like Punelli's here. I think he's finally in the right weight class at 170 pounds. But this is another fight where I really don't like the price. Minus 300 feels a little bit insane on a guy who was shown to be inconsistent, similar to his teammate Shabazian fighting out of Extreme Couture. The path to victory for Soriano here is very clear, though. Wrestle, grapple, get that judo going, get that wrestling going. Because Retnikov, we saw it against Prado, even in a win, and against Vandeford, who we'll talk about in a minute. He is terrible off his back, struggles to defend takedowns. And Soriano, well, he's not some great wrestler by any stretch. I do think he has that advantage here. He has the power advantage on the feet, but Varetnikov is a pretty good striker. So I don't want him to spend 15 minutes here just striking with him. I think that's a mistake. Varetnikov's shown to be pretty damn durable as well, going the distance with guys like Michael Morales on the Contender Series. So for him to justify this line, he needs to grapple. I think he will. I'd be surprised if he didn't. But yeah, I like Punelli here. Just a little bit concerned about the price.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm picking Soriano as well, but I hate this fight. I mean, yes, Soriano does have good wrestling and a decisive edge wrestling in this fight against Veretennikov. But my question is he going to wrestle? That's kind of my frustration with Soriano as a whole. He doesn't always chase those takedowns at the rate that he should. And again, if you're preparing him for this matchup against Veretennikov, all the tape we've seen is that he cannot, fight back when he is put on the mat. Soriano, again, formerly competing at middleweight, should have that advantage against him, getting on top of Veretennikov on the mat and able to rain down blows from there, work towards a finish. Soriano has even had success in some fights, just finding takedowns over and over, racking up immense control time in his bouts. But he's somebody that kind of fell in love with his hands at a point. Could look to strike a bit too much here. Although Veretennikov is very good at mixing up combinations, landing great attacks on the feet. Soriano does have the power advantage and also holds that in addition to the decisive edge grappling in the spot. So yeah, I mean, I never trust Veretennikov as a favorite. As a big underdog like this, he is intriguing, big and strong, for a welterweight. But it would probably have to take a pretty impressive finish to win this fight against Soriano. I think over the course of 15 minutes, he's going to get grinded out. He's going to get taken down a couple times. At least that's what I'd be hoping for if I was a Soriano backer. But yeah, again, just a fight I hate from a handicapping standpoint. Not one that I'm probably going to be betting very much on. Can't look overs or unders either. Could just be, grappling, boring, grinded out 15 minutes from Soriano here. And in the fight before it, we got Austin Vanderford minus 300, the betting favorite against Ramiz Brahimaj, lined plus 240, the betting underdog. This fight also at welterweight. This fight also one where, you'd expect Vanderford, the grappler, wanting the takedown, likely able to get them here, as these odds would indicate. Brahimaj has shown pretty poor takedown defense over the course of his career, but a lot of that is accepting bottom position in hopes of chasing submission attempts of his own. 47% takedown defense from Brahimaj really is not good. Where Vanderford, that is the best part of his game, his wrestling, his offensive grappling. We saw that on display in his fight against Veretennikov, as you had alluded to. He's got a pretty limited boxing repertoire, and I'd actually consider Brahimaj, the better striker of these two. Much better boxing overall, especially early in the fights. We've seen him put his hands on opponents before. And then just speaking on Brahimaj, too, often lined the underdog, oftentimes, underestimated, but pulling off the upset in both of his previous two fights. Really big last time out against Billy Ray Goff, getting that quick submission victory. And Brahimaj is somebody that's always going to be live by submission. Really good front chokes, really good at locking that up against opponents. And, perhaps in this fight too against Vanderford, as he's shooting in, if he's not careful, I could certainly see Brahimaj putting him in some uncomfortable positions on the mat. Vanderford's burned me a few times, but I really don't think his skill set is that dominant. And as a minus 300 favorite, I'd really have trouble getting the window and betting him. So unless you talk me off of it here, I may be looking at another underdog bet in Brahimaj in this fight. Not a very high level matchup in my eyes, so can't fault anyone going either way.
Yeah, this is another one where I think the right guy's favored, but the line is too wide. But the big thing for me here is when you look at the Garimbo loss for Brahimaj, I think Vanderford's grappling compared to Ramos is like leagues and leagues ahead. On the feet, he's going to need to stay safe. Brahimaj really not some great striker by any stretch, but Vanderford getting up there in age, he has shown to be a little bit chinny, albeit against the likes of an Aaron Jeffrey and Greg Armusasi. Really, really good competition that he's losing to. But yeah, I'm going to be concerned early. All of Brahimaj's wins have come in the first round, but I think if this fight gets out of the first few minutes, it should just be Vanderford taking him down, rinsing and repeating. And if Brahimaj is looking for submissions off his back, I don't think he's going to find it. I don't really think he has the path via opportunistic submission either, just because of how good Vanderford is on the mat. I mean, he's been grappling for years, really advanced when it comes to his offense, obviously, and defense. But yeah, the path to victory for him is pretty clear. Brahimaj is going to be dangerous early, especially if Vanderford says, "Hey, I'm going to bite down and try to swing with this guy. Maybe I can catch him with the hook or something." That's a terrible idea. But if he does what he's good at, takes him down, rinse and repeat, he should be able to dominate him on the mat. Pretty good cardio for Vanderford as well. Brahimaj does seem to fade as his fights were on. Can see him finding a late finish. I'm going to be concerned every second this fight's on the feet, but I think Vanderford has the much clearer path to victory here. I think he stays safe from the submissions. He's just got to tuck his chin. He's smaller than a lot of guys at 170 pounds. He is actually a little bit bigger than Brahimaj, so I want to see that. Maybe they're not exactly listed where they should be, but I do think Vanderford is the rightful favorite. I'm just not confident at price. Yeah, maybe a live betting spot. Like if he gets beat up a little bit early, the price will probably improve in a big way, and then you can maybe get Vanderford for a bit of a discount because again, I don't think Brahimaj wins this fight unless it's via early KO. So on Vanderford here, but not as confident as the betting market.
Okay, one more fight to break down. This opens our card at women's flyweight. Veronica Hardy, minus 800, the betting favorite against Brogan Walker, who could be had at 5-1. Not much to say about this matchup from a handicapping perspective. Brogan Walker is 5-1 for good reason. She has not competed in 2.5 years. And now this is a 36-year-old going up against the 29-year-old Veronica Hardy, who, yes, lost in her last fight against a up and coming fighter in Eduardo Mora, but overall looking really good. Good coach Dan Hardy, obviously in her corner, going to likely succeed here executing a game plan, grappling heavy against Brogan Walker, who has very poor grappling defense. She's probably going to be put into some tough decisions or tough positions in this fight from Hardy and forced to fight back to her feet. I do worry a bit about this fight taking place at 125 pounds. Hardy, while filling into this flyweight weight class, likely to be undersized a bit here against Walker in this matchup. 3-inch reach advantage that she's giving up to Brogan Walker, but again, that's not going to be felt when this fight is on the mat. Veronica Hardy is the much more skilled athlete of these two, and I would expect her to get the win, likely by decision, if she's not able to find a submission win here against Brogan Walker to start out the event. But yeah, pretty big favorite. Not much other for me to say. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, another fighter is rightfully favored, but the line's a little bit ridiculous. I don't know that Veronica Hardy should be minus 800 against anyone. She is talented, though. She does have good skills. She obviously has the mind of Dan Hardy, not only in her corner, but in her house with her every minute. Obviously, being married to a really good mind in the sport, obviously. Hardy, great technical striker, throws a lot of kicks. Brogan Walker, I mean, I don't know. I actually think the size advantage here isn't going to be that big. And yeah, Brogan's pretty small herself, so usually, you got to worry about Hardy against bigger fighters. We saw it against Mora, who's actually a really impressive prospect, dominated Lauren Murphy her last time out. But yeah, I think Hardy's the side here. I think if you wanted to bet it, maybe take Hardy by sub. I think on the match, he's going to be the much better grappler. Could probably find an armbar pretty easily. And if Hardy's going to give her the path of least resistance, it's probably against Walker, her 11% takedown defense through 2 fights. So I like Hardy by sub. Don't love the money line. It's a little bit ridiculous, but that's kind of the theme of a lot of these pay-per-view cards. These lines get steamed. They get more public attention. They're out for longer. I like Hardy to get it done here, but again, low-level matchup, proceed with caution.
Okay, UFC 320, Ankalaev versus Pereira 2. Live this Saturday from Las Vegas. We appreciate everyone tuning in to watch our breakdown of these fights. Be sure to also check out our article Saturday morning on Dine's Press Box with our full picks and predictions for each and every one of these bouts. Nick, as always, was a pleasure breaking down these fights, and I look forward to watching them with you this weekend.
Take care, everyone. Let's get it.